And what
Yeah.
price is glory? That's
Well,
a question I really want answered. So I'm already
okay.
interested.
Well,
Nice to see you.
before we get into the price part of it, I want to talk about power, authority, and glory.
Okay.
And my frame of reference is Jesus' own experience as he began his ministry called the temptations. He was led into a series of temptations as he faced the opening chapter of his life, the beginning of his ministry. Now, what's interesting about the temptations is that he was tempted on three levels. One was sustenance, food, which is basic. We consider that basic. In what way would that be temptation?
Well,
Okay.
I know it firsthand how that's
Yeah,
temptation.
okay. The second is recognition. Recognition, want to be known, want to be seen, want to be recognized. Politicians without recognition are dead. There's no possibility. And by the way, I also will be referring to the debate that we listened to last night between former President Trump and aspiring new President Harris. Quite a show. And these three words were very much in display or on display: power, authority, and glory. So Jesus, the second temptation was for recognition. He was tempted to jump off the roof of the temple, and he was promised, as the word, the Bible had promised, that angels would pick him up, prevent him from falling. And Jesus was tempted. Now, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with recognition when it comes our way? It's the recognition of the stage, wanting the world to see and
Of
to
course.
know. Okay.
Look what I can do.
Yeah, and the third one was for power. Power, he was shown the kingdoms of the world, and he was assured that if he followed Satan's direction or rule or control, he would have the whole world.
Wow.
Okay, now this is a fascinating story, comes out of Luke chapter 4. It's also in Matthew. And now, to me, as I look at these, I see that the word power, authority, and glory very much are part of that.
Okay.
These are mighty and grand words which modern humans, man, understands and respects. Is it not true that the most political, social, and institutional concerns seek the successful attainment of all three?
I can't disagree with you
Okay.
at all.
So-
Some more than others.
So what's so intriguing to me is out of legitimate needs and concerns can come a twist that it becomes destructive rather than constructive.
Okay.
And this is what Jesus was saying. Shall I turn stones into bread and satisfy my own personal need? Or shall I wait until it's the right time as I'm being tested and proven to prepare me for my ministry? So hunger and thirst is very much part of the experience one goes through as one moves ahead in one's life. And to cut corners, to steal or whatever to satisfy my hunger before it's time is wrong. Now, power would provide us with the brute force necessary to get anything moving. So Jesus needed power. And Satan knew that. He was alone. He had nothing. And without power, nothing can work.
Correct.
Blueprints can never leave the drawing board, and dreams die unfulfilled without power. I was telling my wife, I hope power doesn't fail in this heat wave we're in. because we have no alternative source of power in our house.
It's very true.
I don't have a generator.
This might be the first summer where there weren't rolling blackouts that were talked about. And I think that may be in part to just talking about power.
Well, we had it in Pasadena.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
well, LA is very packed
Yeah,
in, so
yeah,
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is there's a lot of solar power
Yeah.
that has been installed
Yeah.
over the years, and the city, the state, the government's pushing solar like crazy. Maybe finally
They're storing it.
it's starting to, yes, they're starting to be able to, and I think that's a big deal. And when you come to, like you said, it's the only thing powering our homes.
Yeah.
So if we can have an alternative source of power that's more power,
Yeah.
it feeds right into what we're saying here.
So in what way would power be a temptation, or the seeking for power be a temptation? This is Jesus' dilemma. I'll come back to that. Having secured power and effectively utilized it to accomplish our purposes, we find out that it can produce many beneficial side effects, such as lording it over all who need that power, but are too weak to produce it themselves. So authority is born and quickly degenerates into dictatorship. If I know you need something and you depend on me for that, I can manipulate my resources or my power for you to do what I want you to do for me. Instead of saying, what are your needs and in what way can I satisfy your needs so that you can grow to be the person your potential tells you you can be. So that's the temptation. And why do we seek so much power and authority?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I've often asked myself why people are so consumed by it. And I want to use the word consumed because it consumes all of them.
Exactly.
Not a piece of them.
Exactly.
And you could see the look on their faces. Even people when they have small, itty-bitty amounts of power, you can see the look on their faces. They're still so excited for themselves.
Sure.
And I've never, I guess, talking on the microphone in front of thousands of people like I've done in the sports industry,
Okay.
that was kind of cool at first, but it wears off. But some people,
Okay.
no matter what, just getting in front of people and talking is,
And the irony,
it's a dopamine hit. It doesn't seem like it has to do anything with anything good.
The irony is it's a legitimate need. I remember as a kid playing to see who's number one.
Mm.
Okay, so why do we seek so much power and authority? Is it not that we may rise high up and be number one on the totem pole? Ah, sweet glory.
The old number one, first or last, huh?
Yeah. How wonderful to have people look and say, there goes so-and-so. He runs this town.
Seeking the approval of
The
others.
tragedy of it is that after having successfully achieved all three goals, one ends up unconsciously falling into the hands of the devil. That's the temptation Jesus faced, okay? This is what he tried to do with Jesus, but he was successfully rejected. Blessed are the meek, said Jesus, for they shall inherit the earth. So Jesus discovered that in line of his mission, he must not be detracted to seek the glory prematurely. I was watching yesterday the debate that I mentioned, and all three words, all three needs came into play: power, authority, and finally glory, to be number one, to be president.
Yes.
But on the way to be a president, one soon shows whether one's interests lie in the service of people, the citizenry, or the service of oneself. Now, I don't want to play politics, but interesting how much one candidate talked of I, myself, I did that.
Correct.
The other talked of doing this, doing that for the country, for the world, for the needy. So Jesus is the example of one who in meekness achieved his glory. In meekness.
Wow.
Now, meekness is not weakness.
No.
I've said this before. Meekness is power held in check and used according to the time and the place necessary and the amount necessary. If I let too much water out, it'll destroy.
Correct.
If
It'll
I
wipe
let
out the town.
That's right. If I let it out little by little, I had the chore every day of coming home and watering my dad's garden. There were furrows that I had to manipulate with a hoe and let the water run from one tree to the other. But I knew if I let too much water out, it would destroy the furrow and the water would go and be wasted.
Okay.
So this is what meekness is. So what price glory? What price is it? What is it worth it if we achieve power, authority, and glory, and in the meantime lose the effectiveness, the result of that, which is life and not death, health and not illness, salvation and not doom.
Okay.
That's Christ for you.
Well, that's I see a lot of reflections between the debate and the point you're trying to make today.
Okay.
Tell me more about what you saw at the debate. I understand that Trump got his microphone cut off, kept talking.
Well,
I didn't watch it myself, so kind of fill me in on as to what happened.
You should have watched it. It was good theater. I was very frustrated because he did the same thing he does all the time. He talks and talks and talks and wants to dominate. He talked over 42 minutes, and
wow.
Harris talked about 37.
Okay.
And he kept cutting in. After Harris would make a statement, and the moderator would go and want to go to the next, he'd say, wait a minute, I have something to say, and cut in and talk another 2-3 minutes. That was very distracting.
Yes, that's his best weapon.
That's right.
His distraction.
And he used it, but he used it in such a manner that we heard him 100 times saying same things over and over again.
Oh, okay.
The old tried and true for him, and yet factually not proven statements about this or that or whatever. And that to me was distracting. It was bothersome, but the second half, it righted itself.
Okay.
It found its balance.
Okay.
And it worked fine. I am very aware that the future, if one wins, will be what price glory.
Correct.
It will be victory, but a Pyrrhic victory, because we are going to see that self-centered power leads to misery. And I think that's where we're headed if that candidate
wins. Well, I think it's very very clear. There's nothing here that's too metaphorical. Although we can go deeper and deeper, right?
Yeah.
But authority is born and quickly degenerates into dictatorship. That's very defining of one of those candidates.
It's interesting that when Trump, in his argument, used one European president as an example of his understanding of what is good government, was that of Hungary. And he is a tyrant. You see, he did not quote anybody else, which I thought was very interesting. Urban, his name is Urban.
Okay. Well.
So it was an exercise in frustration for me, because my guess is he's going to win.
You think so?
I think so, because he has too many forces that are using him for their own needs.
Correct.
Rather than he's using them. He's their pawn.
Yes. And he's
so,
happy being it.
yeah, and those forces are on the march, whether he does it well or not in a debate.
Correct. Well, we do live in a capitalistic society. It's frightening to think about what happens when you've achieved all three goals: the power, the authority, and the glory. You end up falling into the hands of the devil. Well, that could also be into the hands of devilish, type
Well,
of people as well.
to me, the
Birds of a
devil,
feather, am I right?
to me, the devil exists in and through people,
Okay.
not as a separate entity. I don't believe in a unseen ghost called the devil
Right.
hovering around. But
So he saw God
yeah,
speaking through his creations and tried to do the same thing.
yeah. So we have our own inner needs and desires and instincts, legitimate as they are, taken over and manipulated to serve destructive ends rather than constructive. Like I said a little while ago, let the water out, the whole power, but destroy the crop in the meantime.
I think I like the simple reference there. I mean, because when you get into politics, it gets very convoluted, very messy, very muddy when it comes to the psychology and the philosophy of it. But the idea of letting too much water out, and therefore the garden will die.
And let me say that the temptation will strike Harris just as much as it is striking Trump. If she were to become president, she's going to face the same issues.
Correct.
How much will I continue to serve the people versus how much will I use the people to serve my needs and my aspirations?
I guess it's harder. Like we think about it as non-politicians.
Yeah.
We could control that power. We could say that from the outside, but if you were actually given, like if I was made a squad leader, or if I was, a platoon sergeant, or if I was walking boys into battle, when you have that power, it's a lot harder to wield it. It's a lot harder to see it. It's a lot harder to understand it when it's on you versus being able to look at the person that's in power. So this must have been a very centralized point for Jesus.
Well, it was
when he was tempted, because tempted by food, we all know what I would do.
The classic argument is, if my family's starving, would I steal to feed them or not? And in stealing, what would happen to me?
Wow, it's heavy.
It's a legitimate question. I don't know whether I would steal, but I would beg. And
but we don't know, like you said, we don't know until we're in that situation.
And begging versus stealing. Begging is putting yourself at the mercy of someone else. Stealing is taking control of someone else's resources for your own needs. So to what extent should we or could we do that? I think that's wrong. But I don't want my family to starve either. So I have a dilemma. If it were to happen, I don't know what I'd do, in all fairness. With Jesus, he remained true to his mission. As we said last week, he did not accept kingship according to what Satan was offering him.
Correct.
See, that from the beginning has been the temptation. And at the very end, Jesus, in the Garden of Eden, when he was praying before his crucifixion, he faces temptation again. And Nikos Katsatzakis, in his famous Last Temptation, he says it so beautifully. It comes through at the end, where the temptation is so overpowering that usually ordinary person would give in. But Jesus did not, and he accepted death. So accepting death then could be sometimes the right thing to do. Give me liberty or give me death. Sometimes I joke about that. I say, give me death or give me liberty. The way America is going. So this
priorities.
So we all in our life, wherever we are, whoever we are, we seek these powers. I want to be the number one in the team. I want to be the captain. I want the glory that comes from winning. And when we win, we look around to see who's there to see that we won. If there's nobody there, it's a down beat. It's a downward emotion. I used to play sports, and I used to do that. I used to say, "Who's here today?"
Agree.
And, yeah.
Even Michael Jordan used to say, one of his famous quotes was, who are you playing for? Because he used to play so hard.
Yeah.
And he would say, I'm playing for the person who's never been to a game before.
Yeah.
So you're spot on.
And I also am playing for those who have been before and who know what good playing is. You see, in my day, parents never went to see games that their children played in. It's just the opposite here. Parents not only come, they're helicopter parents. They shout at the umpire and all that.
Oh, well, parents and youth sports referees. That's a TV show all on its own.
I used to wish my parents could come sometimes. I wanted the recognition. I want them to know they never did. They never gave me a compliment.
Yeah.
So that's horrible when that happens to a kid. He needs that recognition.
Maybe this is a good place for that kid to look to Jesus for support. Because he'll always be with him.
But remember,
am I right?
It's right. But remember, Jesus says, be true to the principles that govern you and don't give in just for the sake of gaining recognition and power. So you've got to be careful.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
And what are those principles? Love is the utmost. Love, Jesus said, love your enemy. Oh my God, how can you do that? And I've had enemies.
You're not alone. You are not alone.
How do we, and at that point, many people get off the boat. They said, Jesus isn't for me. Okay, so you've got to have those principles that Jesus set for us that are primary and come before the achievement of these goals that we're talking about here today. Yeah.
What price is glory? So what's a good question for this week?
Well, my question is, are you aware of what your desires are for achievement? And are you aware that you can achieve them, but don't take shortcuts?
Like you said, through meekness, not weakness.
Yes, meekness and power through meekness is a fantastic thing. We know leaders in our history who've been meek and yet successful leaders, and we look up to them. To me,
yes,
Abraham Lincoln is a prime demonstration of that.
Okay.
He had the power, but he did not use brute force power.
No.
Yeah.
And he actually changed quite a lot.
I know
he did quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the question for us.
Okay.
Am I frustrated because I can't reach the top? Or am I happy because in the process I am being a productive person, whether I reach the top or not? Okay?
Okay.
So that's it.
Wow. So it's lonely at the top for a reason, huh?
Yep. There's room at the top.
All right. Well, episode 8 in the books. We hope you're enjoying the podcast series, Pointed Reflections, with ordained minister, Pastor Kass from the Presbyterian Church. And we will see you next week. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for being with you today.
All right. See you soon.